Hello, Instagram family. Right at the last second, husband saves the day, setting up my light. Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you for this edition of All Good Things. It's all about new beginnings. Obviously, yesterday was a historic day. We have a new president, and no matter, as I said in my post, where you land politically, I think we can all agree that we want our country to succeed and we want to come together and see some positive changes. So I decided to welcome on Tamsen Fadal. She is an anchor for Pix 11 in New York City, which we have a personal story in a moment once I bring her in. But she is a huge advocate for new beginnings and talking all about how that impacts her work, her life. And I'm so thrilled to have her join me today to talk a little bit about it. Pix 11 is a local station in New York City, if you've never heard of it. And she is a superstar that's written a number of books as well, which we'll talk about too when I get her on the live. How's everyone doing today? Are you having a good day? I hope so. Tams and I am sending you, oops, hold on. Let's see if that works. Don't y'all love when I do these lives and I can't? Okay, here we go. Oh, the doctor was really informative last time. I agree. It was a real wonder. Tamsen, I'm so happy to see your face.
Great to see you. You look beautiful.
You look beautiful. I am so thrilled to have you on. I was explaining to the viewers, I really wanted to talk about new beginnings today because
Yes.
no matter where people stand politically, I think it's incredibly important for us to embrace this time of change,
Yes.
for positivity for the country and success for the country. And you've been such a voice for that philosophy. And I just want for the viewers who have not met you before to talk a little bit about what you've done with New Beginnings and why that's been so significant in your own life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the last time I saw you is when I was going through one of the big ones, saw you in person. But I think that I've always feared change. Like that's always been something scary in life. When you're talking about divorce, you're talking about new jobs, you're talking about starting over again. And I've learned, I guess over the past 8 years or so, of just kind of how to embrace that and really be okay with it. And my mantra, and I don't know if everyone wants to use it, but it's really like, what's the worst thing that could happen as you go forward? And I think I learned that at a young age, and I'm actually in the process of writing another book right now about kind of what's coming up next in life. We use a phrase constantly in news, right? Coming up next. And I just think that our life is changing so quickly right now. Every story is kind of a different day, whether we're talking about what's going on in the landscape of the world, or we're talking about the pandemic, politics, and just in relationships in general. And I think you've got to learn how to navigate that more like a developing story than a paralysis, when you hit a roadblock like that, where you just kind of shut down and you can't do anything.
Last time I saw you in person, you were on about your book.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit about it because
Sure.
You were going through your divorce. You talked about being single. You've now come full circle in a new
Yes.
relationship, now newly engaged. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I love this New Beginnings.
Oh,
Tell
thanks.
us about your book and the one that you're writing as well.
Yeah. So my last book was called The New Single. I had come from a kind of pretty public divorce, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I was in that state of, I'm just kind of stuck in the place where I am right now. And I thought I better start writing this down and figuring out how to get through this part. And I did it in increments of 90 days because that's kind of all my head could wrap itself around. If I get through something for 90 days, I could pick up and get through the next 90 days. And it really took a structure for me because I was hit kind of hard by it. I was not so much a question of whether or not the relationship should be over, but who I was outside of that relationship. And that was the confusing part for me, or the difficult part for me. And so I did it in increments of 90 days. And I really, after a year's period, I looked back and I wrote about this in the book. I had a boss at the time that we weren't necessarily fond of each other, but he gave me some good advice. He said, it's not going to look like this 365 days from now. So just know that if you can get through that. And I thought, a year? Well, that's like asking somebody to get through a lifetime when you're in a place where you're not happy. And but I did it in increments of 90 days, and he was right. And I've always quoted him, which is a little bit crazy, is to be quoting somebody you weren't necessarily very fond of. So no, that's what I've done. I've started over 90 days at a time, and now fast forward several years, but I'm engaged, and you know, the new
Happy
relationship, a new
and starting on
beginning,
the new
a
beginnings.
new relationship, a new beginning.
Someone chimed in the comments that they're very excited that you're writing another book, loving the
Oh,
new
that's
single.
very sweet.
I'm
Thank you.
very thrilled to read it when it comes out. And how does it talk about this next chapter for you? You know, I was interviewing you when you were really in that difficult place. And I think it gives you a real reminder that it's temporary, as you point out, and
Right.
that there can be so much more ahead to look forward to. But it's hard to feel that in the moment.
It really is hard to feel that in the moment. And the new book is called Burn the Script. And so it's really about stopping that repetitive pattern of where we are. I found that even recently when I was trying to write, I was having a really difficult time. I was just kind of stuck in my own pattern. The pandemic, I was working from home a lot. And, you know, we went back to the studio, but the world is very different right now, right? And so that's what I created. I created kind of a roadmap of how we do it in the news business, you know, how we move on to the next story. And it doesn't mean you didn't care about the one before, but it means that you use that to get to the next place. And so that's what I did, and I hope it resonates. I've just met so many, and I know you have too, but I've met so many incredible women that you would think had to stop wherever they were in their careers or age defined them, and they have not let it do that. I turned 50 this year, and I've been a little freaked out, quite frankly, about it. And you know, and I started kind of studying over the past 2 years before I knew that this benchmark was coming. People that have just really reinvented themselves and are happier now on this end of it instead of kind of following the same story that they think they have to follow. And they've impressed me, and so I'm writing about them, and then just writing about kind of what I've learned from their lessons along the way.
You know, being in the news, especially in New York City, you know, I had you on specifically today because we have this transition, we have this new beginning. What's it been like for you as you've been guiding those viewers in New York City through these really difficult times and politically difficult times? And where do you see the country headed?
You know, I think what I saw, you know, yesterday, you know, we covered the you know, the events of the day and the inauguration, and I think it was interesting is I saw so many at the end of the day, and this morning even when we woke up, the focus now being on the pandemic and what we're really all dealing with, because that is what is impacting every one of our lives. Whether or not you're trying to get your parents a vaccine, whether or not you're not able to get outside, whether or not you're deciding to send your kids to school, or they're going to be remote, or they're going to be at home. And so, you know, I think that when we say we're all in this together, I feel like we really are. And I think going forward, maybe that we have to have that reminder every single day so we can do that. Because this is I mean, you know, this is unprecedented. This is nothing that we had ever written a script about, thought was ever going to happen. We had read about it in the history books. We never thought we'd be living it, talking about it, seeing needles on the air every day, being put into arms. And so I do feel more of a closeness with the viewers. I have to say that because I feel like we're all kind of plodding along and navigating this together. And I don't know that I've ever felt it, and maybe you feel the same way. I don't think I've ever felt it to this extent. I've never felt I could get on the air and say like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what they're going through, or they know exactly what I'm going through every day.
I completely agree. I think that connection is something that's really unusual, right? We're oftentimes bringing really difficult news that, you know, fortunately we're not going through ourselves, but we have to dig into what that feels like, because it's a great responsibility to be able to do a story. It's justice. And this is a strange time where we are experiencing the story with everybody else. I think that makes them trust us a little bit more, hopefully.
Yeah. And I think it makes me feel like I really know what I'm talking about if I'm sharing a story. You know, over the weekend, I was working to try to get my parents vaccines in Florida, and it was a mess. It was very difficult. And I thank goodness, you know, I signed up to all these text messages. My parents in their 80s, I signed up to all these text messages, and finally they said, we're opening 700 vaccines, you know, hit the button and go. And I opened up browsers, I'm going back and forth, and I thought to myself, like, how could somebody do this that maybe didn't, you know, have their computer right there in front of them at the time, or didn't have a computer, or didn't know how to go from your text message to the link on the, you know, it was very, very, it was a lot to handle. And I thought, wow, my thoughts of what's important have certainly changed over the course of the past year. And I'm really happy about that. You know, I'm really happy that what are you going to wear to this is not the question that's on my mind in the morning. The question on my mind is, how are we all going to get to a place where we get back to, how things feel a little bit more normal, and if people are not dying every day, and we just feel good about kind of life, because I think I see a lot of people having a really, really tough time right now, even if they're not sick, just kind of dealing with the isolation and the loneliness, quite frankly.
There's a real toll emotionally as well on everyone, by the
Sure,
way. But I don't know if you
sure.
recently saw the CNN reporter Sarah Seidner getting really emotional outside the
Mm,
hospital,
mm.
to really explain to people that she has seen the tragedy, she has
Sure.
lived through it with these families, and please take this seriously. This is not
Yeah.
something to dismiss, and do your part. We all need to be doing our part. How have you handled it emotionally? Personally, for me, being outside of the studio, because my show was taken off the air so that our staff could
Mhm.
stay at home, and it still
Sure.
hasn't come back, so I haven't had to do the day to
Right.
day that I'm so used to, and
Right. Right.
I emotionally feel a difference from some of my colleagues. For
Sure.
you, every single day, especially in New York City, where, I mean, having lived there for 11 years, it's just like the heart of it is beating differently.
Yeah, it really is. When this all started, there were subways running. There were, I mean, I can't even believe it still, but last spring, last summer, I keep thinking it's March of last year for some reason. I don't know if anybody else is doing that, but I
Yes.
keep, I'm like, wait a minute, it's January of what year? But I live on the west side, and our studio is on the east side. And while we were still in the studio at the beginning of all this, because we never had the capacity, this, to work from home and set up, monitors and get cameras running and get feeds. I mean, it was unheard of a year ago. And so I would walk across the city every day, and it was heartbreaking. It was a little bit scary. It was, and not scary safety, but just scary to see like everything grind to a halt.
Mm.
And heartbreaking in that, a lot of people maybe don't have a family at home. Maybe they're in their apartment by themselves and they're going through it alone. And I thought to myself, like, I just I've never experienced a world like this, and I just don't know how everybody else is. So I try to have a different kind of compassion going into work every day. And this is what I think, I know we got into the business to tell stories, and I think over time things get lost, and now you're going through every day. You've got this show, this show, this show. But I realize, like, we're the disseminators of information, period. That's what we do. We give people information. That's what it should be about. And I think that more than anything else, more than opinions, it should be about, here's what is going on. Here's how you get your shots. Here's how you make sure that you're safe. Here's how you do your best. And I realized our job, I think I approached the job differently. And so I made sure I walked across the city every day to kind of get the vibe of the city and feel where things were, and seeing restaurants shut down. And so that was how I did it. So when I got on the air every day, it was from a very authentic place of, I'm a New Yorker, I'm walking across the city, here's what's going on, and here's your story. And I've asked people to reach out to me, and I try to get back to as many as I can, because I think that's, and it's not always possible, but I think that's really important to be able to do, so we know what's going on in different pockets, and it's not just an overall, like, here's what's going on in all of New York City, because we have millions of stories here, and I think that everyone can relate to them. And then working at home was interesting, because I had, I liked it because I could wear my cutoff shorts.
It's the best.
I'm a Florida girl at heart. My cutoff shorts, my chihuahua in the bedroom, and then I came in and I made dinner between shows. So I thought that was kind of cool, actually, for a little while. But it was important for us to get back into the studio so we would have the resources, that were necessary to us. So
Yeah, especially since your show, it's 10 p.m.
yeah,
So, I mean, yeah, every night, people don't really realize in the news business the lifestyle of
yeah,
that. It's really,
yeah,
you miss evenings with your fiance and things like that. I'm sure it's difficult, but I love that you point out about opinions. And I just want to get
yeah.
your take on this in journalism in
Hmm.
general. I
Sure.
come from this like very purist journalism 101, where it's
Yeah,
that
me too.
you don't present any opinion. It's just the facts, ma'am, and you move on. It's really changed in journalism, where people
Yeah.
have really laid their stake in the ground. How do you feel about that?
Uh, you know, I yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, I've noticed it because it's there, and I applaud people that are able to do it. It's just not what I'm able to do, and so I'm aware of that. So I always try to make sure, and sometimes it's hard. Every once in a while, I'm like, did I make a face? Was my cadence different than it should have been. Honestly, I was really annoyed this weekend trying to help, I was trying to help my parents and I was scared. And I was like, oh, and so when we were talking about vaccines on Monday when we came on the air, I almost said like, well, I couldn't get anything. And then I went, wait a minute, that's not up to me to say because there's a lot of people that are much worse off. And so, yeah, it's not what I feel comfortable doing, but I understand there's a place for it. And so I'm fine with that. I just don't know. And look, down the line, could there be a place for me to have an opinion on, relationships, on change, on aging? Aging is a big one for me right now. I'm seeing a lot of ageism, and not with regard to me, but just in general in the world. And so that has kind of been my big opinion of late, because I want to fight for that, and obviously because I'm in that area. But I think with regard to news, I'm the purist. I want to give you just the facts. I want to tell you where to get it, what's going on. Here's this side, and you decide. And straight
Uh-huh.
down straight down that middle road is what I learned. Who, what, where, when, how, why. And that's what I learned. And it's what I'm comfortable with. It is really what I'm comfortable with. And I
I
think you are
love
too.
hearing that.
It might be our
I feel
generation. It might
exactly the
be,
same way.
yeah, yeah,
I want to talk about the ageism. You said you had a really
sure.
hard time turning 50.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone chimed in here that you look like you just graduated from high school, so they couldn't believe that you had
Oh,
just turned 50.
what filter are you using?
So I
I'm
wanted to
still trying
put
to
that
wake
out
up.
there. Not that, but I think it's not anything that anyone doesn't feel at that big milestone, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, of course,
anytime
of
you
course.
are facing a new decade, how have you sort of reconciled with it? Because it sounds like you're in a really good place with it now. And
Yeah,
obviously, I mean, this is
not
like
so
the best
much.
decade for you. You are
Yeah.
about to start a new life with,
Yeah.
your future husband.
Yeah, it's so I'm going to take it to a sad moment for a minute, but then I'll bring it full circle. So my mom died when she was 50. She went through breast cancer starting at the age of 44, and she died at 50. So for me in my life, and I don't think I realized it, and I went through, I needed a lot of help to kind of dig that stuff out with regard to therapy and sorting it through. But it was always kind of the end in my head. 50 was the end. Like, what happens past 50 when your mom does it, and I know people have lost their parents earlier than that, but for me, 50 was my, not only this, oh my gosh, decade, but also, or year, but also that's what I associated it with, death, in my head. And I had to, rip those things apart. And so I think that was a lot of what was difficult for me. And now on the other side of that, obviously I knew logically that was not the case, but emotionally and psychologically, that's what I thought. Uh, and now that's why I think I've studied so many of these stories of these women, because I've seen people at 65 start a new business. Bobby Brown had this amazing makeup business and all, sold it, and then all of a sudden it's like, what am I doing next? And now has turned around as a wellness coach and has another business. So I look at people, and then some of the stories are just incredible, and I'm so excited to be able to share them once we get the book published, because I think that those resonated with me and those helped me get to the other side, and now look forward to what happens in these next 20 years. And so that's why I think it's so important for people to feel that way. And I think there's been a movement, obviously, in this next decade. Even Matthew McConaughey talking about 50, when J-Lo talking about these people that we've looked up to and seen kind of grow up with. So I feel good about it, but it was quite the struggle for me to get there, and my fear of it.
I
So
think
I'm not
is that something that you're going to talk about in the book as well,
a
of just
100%, yeah.
overcoming?
Overcoming it, and really understanding that it's okay, and I think television played one other role in all of that, which is, when I was in Philadelphia, the anchor that I had that sat next to me, I was a reporter at the time, and she said, once you're 40, good luck in this business. You might have one other backup plan. And I went, 40? Like, that's in TikTok. That's in 4 years. What? And she's like, 45 if you're lucky. And I remember thinking and fearing for a very long time that, and you know that as well as I do, like women in TV at a certain age, guys in TV, are there for a very long time. And so I am excited to see that is changing. I'd like to see it change even more. I'd like people to be, much more aware of it. And I hope that this, helps that happen. So,
People may not know how I first met Tamsen. I
yes.
interviewed at Pix 11. I
Hmm.
actually auditioned for the show that
Hmm.
Tamsen is hosting.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got word that I didn't get the job and that you got it. And I wasn't disappointed because I knew that you were the
Oh,
better
thank
candidate for
you.
the job.
Thank you.
And I think that it taught me a lot in full circle of now seeing all your success, and being so
Well,
happy
and
for you
yours.
in that. I think that it's such a lesson to people in your disappointments sometimes can be your greatest next steps.
Hmm.
And
That's
I
such a
don't
good
know
way
if
to put
you've
it.
ever experienced that in this business, because there's so many times that you face rejection, and there's so many
Hmm.
times that, you think the perfect only opportunity you're going to have, you
Right.
didn't
This is
get,
it.
and
Yep.
it's sending you on a different path.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're really right. And it's oh yeah, I mean, look, I sent out so many letters when I first got into this business. They still haven't responded, the stations are still like, no. But yeah, you're really right about that. And I also think that there's something that makes you feel kind of whole when you realize you can get beyond that petty place, and not feel envy or jealous, and you really embrace the fact that there is a bigger message and there is somebody bigger in charge than our to-do list every day and what we think we're accomplishing. And then when you have people you can reach out to, like I reached out to you about the book, and I asked you for a blurb, and you were like the first one back right away, done. And
Done.
I think that women do there's certain women that you really can rely on and really lean on. And I think that that's a big deal. Even if, we hadn't talked for a very long time, and I reached out to you and you got right back to me. And I hope I always do that for the right people in my life. I think when you get to that place, you can just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Do you feel like that? I
I
feel like you
do.
just go, oh, I get it now. Like I'm a grown up. I get it. I get that this is how it's supposed to be.
And it's so wonderful to celebrate other people's achievements,
Yeah.
especially women.
Yeah.
And when you're talking
Yes.
about something that we face in our business where we're, toast once we hit a certain
Hmm.
age,
Hmm.
but,
Hmm.
you're sitting getting, well, I had a co-anchor that used to sleep during the commercial
Right.
breaks because he was like pushing 80. And I'm like, how is that possible? And I can't make it past 45. And I just think if we aren't, and this doesn't just apply to the TV business, if we aren't
Right.
celebrating and lifting each other up, there are too many people pushing us down to be able
Yep.
to get through this. And I just
Yeah.
found that to be something where I identified those women in my career. I still have
Hmm.
those friends at work.
Hmm.
It exists. And it's
Yep.
something that you should continue to look for. If they're not that way, you walk the other way
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. I've learned to stop. It's funny. So I recently had there's two people that I was talking about working with on some of the book stuff, and one is really really brilliant, and I was thinking like, do I work with this person, do I work with this person, and one just gave me like this feeling of I was always trying to impress them, and I didn't know why, and it's not the right relationship for me to be in with with that kind of working relationship. And I thought, okay, I just have to walk away from it. And I realized that I do have that tendency to like try to be a people pleaser still. And I have to catch myself with that and say, no, this is the group that you need to be in, the group that empowers you, makes you feel better. Even if you don't have all the answers, they can help lift you up and find them. And I think that that's the only way to do it. And I don't know that it means you're going to have, 100 friends or you're going to have 5, but I think that those 5 mean a whole lot more than 100 if those are the ones that lift you up. And those are the ones that you can call when you need a 5 minute in the middle of the day, or you just need to be reminded of who you are. And I think a lot of times we need to be reminded of who we are and celebrated, and we can't always do it ourselves,
Yeah,
for
and that's
ourselves.
why I am so excited to read your book once it comes out, when you
Thank you,
feature some
thank
of
you.
these women.
Yeah, I'm
Somebody asked in the
excited.
comments if you have a title for it yet. Is there any
Well, the
title, and
working
where can people
title
find
is, yes, the working title is Burn the Script. I don't know if that's going to stay or not, so we'll see. If somebody has any thoughts about that. It had started out as coming up next, but we're going back and forth with the two right now, so
I love
we'll
Burn the
see which one.
Script.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm
Her
glad. I think
last
it's
book
more of an
is
action.
called The New Single, as somebody just chimed out as
Oh
well. You
yeah.
have a website. Where can people find you and learn
Oh
more
yeah.
about you?
Just tamsenfadal.com. Yep, it's all on
Awesome.
there. Yes, yes.
You are wonderful. I'm
Oh,
so happy
thanks.
to get
I'm
this
so glad
time
we
to
did this.
chat with you.
I'm so glad you're doing this. I think it's so important. If there's anybody I can introduce you to you want to bring on, let me know. So
You just tell
it's
me, because
great.
something that I felt is really important about this is, I keep saying it is to educate, to inspire, to leave people fuller. It's the only thing we can do right now, hopefully, to get people in a positive place. It's what we
Yep.
need. So
I
Tamsen, thanks
could
for
not
being a
agree
part of
more.
it.
I couldn't agree more.
Talk soon. Good luck with the
Good to
book.
see
I
you.
can't wait to
Thank
read
you.
it.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.